Welcome back Year 4, and today we're going to be making our second instrument for our homemade orchestra. And I'm very excited because today we are going to be making our very first piece of percussion. And in order to do this, last time if you remember I showed you the cigar box guitar, which was a homemade instrument that had become popular, and now we've got a different type of homemade instrument, a percussion instrument that again began as a homemade instrument made out of stuff that was lying around or people had at hand, and it's become a really popular instrument that you can buy in shops around the world. And in order to show you this, we're going to go over to my helper Luca, and he's going to show us something again. Off you go, Luca. Amazing, and some of you might recognise that tune. Now, Luca, do you want to bring over the instrument and we can talk about it and show us what it is? So, as you can see, that's what Luca was playing. Do you want to tell us what that is called, Luca?
It's called a cajon.
A cajon. Now, a cajon is called that because cajon is a Spanish word that means box or drawer, and it's called that because it was an instrument that originally came from Peru, which is a country in South America where they speak Spanish. And it was originally made from a box. As you can see, it very much looks like a wooden box. And this instrument started off in the sort of docks and so on around Peru, where there would often be lots of wooden crates lying around, which had brought in, come off the ships and brought in goods. And sometimes the people who'd work on the docks would sit around and they might be playing some music and so on. They might be playing some of the other instruments that they have, guitars or whatever. And in order to accompany themselves, they started banging on those wooden boxes. And that eventually became the cajon. Now, at the moment, it's still a wooden box, but it's just got some springs in there, which gives it that kind of rattly sound that you can hear. So, I wanted to show you this because, like I said, today we're going to be making our own percussion instrument, the very first percussion instrument. And what we're going to be making is some drums. We're not going to need a lot for this one either. We're going to need some plastic bottles, any shapes and sizes. So I've got like a sort of a big water bottle, empty water bottle here, and I've got an empty sort of orange squash bottle, but really any plastic bottles will do. You can use the big 2-litre ones, you can use the smaller ones, and you can experiment with how the different ones sound. We're going to need that. We're also going to need some tape. Again, normally this kind of packing tape works quite well because it's very thick and we can use that, but any kind of tape will do. You can use some of that kind of masking tape if you've got some of that. You can ask your grown-ups if they've got any of that lying around the house, or even just some normal sellotape will do. It's a little bit thinner, so we might need to use a bit more of it, but that will also do. So to start with, what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up our bottles. Now you might need a little bit of help with this because sometimes it can be a little bit hard to cut into, so you might want to ask your grown-up to help you with cutting into the bottle. But that's the first part of it. So all I'm going to do is, to start with, I'm going to take my knife, I'm going to cut it about there. I'm not going to leave a lot of room, I'm just going to cut it about a bit less than halfway. And once I've made a little hole in it, then I can just use my scissors and just cut it up. There we go. That's one, and we're going to do another one. So I've got my second bottle here, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make the first hole myself to make sure that it's safe. And once I've done that, then Luca's going to go with the scissors and cut the rest of it out. And you might want to do the same thing with your grown-up. There we go, and there we have it. So now, the tops of our bottles we're going to save because we're going to be using them in our next one. So for the moment, we're going to save them, put them to one side. It's really the bottom parts of our bottles that we really want to use. So that one is about the perfect size, but I'm just going to cut that one a little bit more because it might be a bit too long. So I'm just going to make it a little bit straighter. As you can see, the edge is a little bit bent, so I'm just going to try and make sure it's straight. And that's perfect now. The next thing we're going to do is we're simply going to get our tape and we're going to cover the top of our drum completely with it. I'm going to put plenty of tape on it I'm just going to cover the top of my drum like that. Would you like to do the rest of it, Luca?
Yes, please.
I'll get you the tape and you can stick it on. There we go. You want to make sure that the tape is quite tight around the drum, because otherwise it's not really going to make much of a sound. Remember, we want those vibrations to travel along that tape, and if it's too loose, the vibrations will just get lost. Okay, so we've got that. We want to cover it completely. We can go over it more than once if we need to. You want to get the scissors and cut that. And there we have it, our first part of our drum. You can hear that, and we're going to do exactly the same with this one. So now we've got our two drums. Because they're different sizes, which means, well, we've got different frequencies of pitch going through them. They've got different sounds in them. So what we can then do is tape them together. Can you hold that? And we're going to tape those two together. Okay, so we've got our drums now. The next thing we need is something to hit them with. We can always use our hands, but it can sometimes sound better when we hit them with something. So I've got, for example, these little kebab sticks that we use. Sometimes you might use in barbecues or whatever. So you can use those. If you haven't got any of those, you can always use a pencil or a pen. The longer the better, really, so then you can really get some nice sound in it. But anything you've got around can use. And again, like always, like with all this stuff, it's all about experimenting. Try different things out and see what sounds better. That sounds quite good. One little trick we can use, if you've got some spare elastic bands lying around, you can always put them. So if you've got this stick, you can always put some elastic bands on the end of it to make a sort of beater. And again, it's all about experimenting. See what sounds good. Do you like it better? What do you think how would you describe the difference in the sound when you put the elastic around it to just using the stick on its own? Does it sound better? Do you like it? Does it sound louder? So once I've got the beater, the elastic on the end, it's going to change the sound slightly because it's not going to be so hard. It's not going to be the wood that's hitting, it's more the elastic band, which means it's going to have a slightly different sound. So let's see what that's like. Okay, so I've got my beater there, as you can see. You can try experimenting hitting it on different parts of the drum. There you go. So now we've got some drums. We can start making some percussion tracks for our homemade orchestra. So once again, you can always experiment with different things. So instead of using those bottles, why don't try using a tin maybe? See what that sounds like. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for year 4, and we'll see you on the next one.